All right, we are live. This is going to be, I think, a special segment of the Justin and Donald Save America. I don't think this is going to be a full-on episode. Can't imagine that it's going to be, but I just want to explore the idea of, do they really want us to eat bugs? Talking about the World Economic Forum, these international elite types. Justin, this is a topic that is mostly in meme form on the internet. You know, Klaus Schwab's Cricket O's cereal box or something like that. Have you seen any of this allegation that the people that are pushing the Great Reset, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, the World Economic Forums, are like gearing us up to eat bugs?
Yeah, I've heard people. I agree. I think it's mostly as a meme or maybe more like amongst the conspiracy theory type crowd. It's kind of right on line with did they make COVID? Did Klaus Schwab like make COVID in the back room of his office and release it into the world? And then you'll get other people who say things about like this is also part of that. They want us to eat bugs. That's usually how I see it. That
Right.
doesn't mean that I think it. I'm not saying I don't believe that there's some truth to it. If I had to guess, I'd say there probably is. You would know better than I would since you did the prep for this episode. But that is usually how it comes up. It's usually very far flung sort of
Right.
ways. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what I want to explore today. Do they really want us to eat bugs? So that's what we're going to talk about on this little special segment of Justin and Donald Save America. But before we get into any of the topics, I do want to put that message out there. Just basically a call to action for all of you people to help all the viewers of this, to help us get our message out there. You can do it very simply, very easily, no cost at all. Just hit that like button, hit that share button, leave a comment under this video, all things that you can do that cost absolutely nothing, but help break through those big tech algorithms that prevent content like this from reaching more eyeballs. So yeah, Justin, like I said, I have kind of seen this in meme form, and it's I was just like, dismiss it. But there's been so much that we've seen when we've entered this rabbit hole of the Great Reset and all of the futurism stuff that we're looking into now, where it seems like it's fake, but then we look into it, and there's a lot more reality there than we thought there might be. So I wanted to take this episode to just kind of look into it a little bit, see if there's any truth to these claims, or if it is just a concoction of just kind of, crazy tinfoil hat wearing type of people. So I did this search beforehand. This is a couple of weeks ago when I was curious about this topic. So let's just very simply, anybody can do this at home. I got my Google browser up here, google.com, World Economic Forum insects. Let's see what comes up. I assume if there's no truth to this, it's just going to be a bunch of, conspiracy sites grasping at straws and anything, and no, New York Times articles or anything like that. So let's see what happens when I hit enter. Oh, what we see here is an entire page of results from the World Economic Forum talking about bugs and eating bugs and the idea of a different source of protein. And you can see here, I'm scrolling through nice and slowly. All of these, except for maybe this last one, are very official World Economic Forum websites, articles talking about bugs. So why don't we just click through some of these, Justin? I've got some of these in order of date. So this is one of the first ones that I found just on the first page. I didn't do a whole super deep dive in any of this. World Economic Forum article, Could Insects Farms Meet Our Food Demands of the Future? So this is an April 17th, 2018 article, and you could see that it is under the food security subtitle here or category. Just keep an eye on those categories because that kind of gets interesting too. Next article, this is from the same year, July of 2018. Good Grub, Why We Might Be Eating Insects Soon. And this is under the Agriculture, Food, and Beverage section. Another article here, this is from September 23rd, 2019. Burgers, Bugs, and the Shift to a New Way of Eating. And this one's under Sustainable Development. So you're already seeing the... the different categories that these things are being put into. Before it was just food security, then agriculture. Now it's sustainable development. And we've only been at this for a couple of years now. Next one, also food security. Why we need to give insects the role they deserve in our food systems. Again, everything, and this is for the audio only listeners. All of these articles are on the World Economic Forum website. This is not me reading from InfoWars or anything like that. This is straight from the source, folks. And then this one is probably the most concerning if we're going to spend any time on any of these articles. It should be this one. Again, World Economic Forum website. 5 reasons why eating insects could reduce climate change. And this category I thought was the most interesting. Davos Agenda 2022 is the category that this is labeled under. So it's not just food security. It's not just agriculture or something like that. Some of these broad terms of the way they're organizing this. No. This is Davos Agenda 2022, which is kind of their like flagship effort when it comes to all of these international meetings and stuff that they have. So, I mean, Justin, this is just a sampling of the articles, but seems like there's a pattern. and I will say, because you see this on a lot of websites, and maybe it's even the case on this one, but if you go down to like the bottom of some of these articles, they'll talk about how, oh yeah, right here, the views expressed in these articles are those of the author alone and do not and not the World Economic Forum. So, Justin, I mean, we see a pattern here. I mean, do you recognize the pattern? And do you think that that little disclaimer at the bottom of the article absolves the World Economic Forum of any claims that they're endorsing any of this? What do you think?
Yeah. So I don't know if I don't I want what there's something I want to say about that I don't know if I should. Let me phrase it this way.
Okay.
In the nonprofit think tank world, of which you and I are a part and have had a fair amount of experience now working in, it is common for organizations like the World Economic Forum and every nonprofit that I'm aware of, in fact, that puts out reports, studies, whatever, to say that whatever it is that they're putting out does not reflect the beliefs of their organization. Even when they're the ones that are the people writing it, they'll say that oftentimes, which doesn't even make sense. But you'll see that all the time. You see that warning all the time. It's everywhere. It means nothing. It means literally absolutely nothing. It's not the same as like an op-ed published in a newspaper where it's like you could theoretically have multiple views or something like that. Oftentimes these organizations, for example, if I wanted to write an article that said forcing people to or encouraging the widespread eating of bugs is insanity, would the World Economic Forum publish it? Would they even consider it? My guess is no, they wouldn't, because they have an agenda that they're trying to put out there clearly, because there's numerous. Now, there might be times where there's like a for and against type thing, sure. But that doesn't seem to be the case with the bugs. When you searched it, were there any articles on the website that was negative? That was opposed to eating bugs?
Not that I saw, and I did look through a couple of pages.
Okay.
I did not see anything like that.
So I think that tells you everything you need to know about it. So I mean, it's pretty crazy, but I will say this. It's not crazy. In this article that you've highlighted here at the end, why 5 reasons why eating insects could reduce climate change. I haven't read it because I haven't seen any of this information before, but this is not crazy, as you and I have talked about before. If you buy into this underlying theory that we all are going to die from climate change, if you believe the world's going to end from climate change, then there is nothing that's crazy. Everything goes, because anything would be less crazy than extinction.
Yeah, so, I mean, just look at this. The article is part of the Davos Agenda. That's what I mean.
Right.
Can we get any more clear than that? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily reflective of the views of the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, it's just part of their agenda.
I mean, yeah.
Our consumption of animal protein is the source of greenhouse gas and climate change. Insects are an overlooked source of protein and a way to battle climate change. The consumption of insects can offset climate change in many ways. Now, I will say, like, some of these articles, one of them in particular, I mean, this one's from a reporter from Reuters writing this one. Another one here, which one is it? One of these is authored by a CEO of a company that like makes bugs for human consumption. So like I can understand that there's like some that are, you know, a little bit more just like, it's just some think piece. This one is the assistant professor of operations and supply chain management, which I thought was a little bit more of a interesting title that this person has. But I mean, I could see a lot of people that are listening to this and be like, well, where is this coming from? So thankfully, there is a good little infographic here in one of the myriad of articles that we've got. So this is from the article Good Grub, Why We Might Be Eating Insects Soon. And it has this breakdown showing all of the resources that are needed to develop protein from various animals, cows, pigs, chickens, and how they compare to insects. And as you can see here, it takes a lot less resources to produce protein from insects. So doesn't that just seem so much more sustainable to you than all of the resources that we need to grow protein on cows? So like this is the direction that they're going in. And it is to me it seems as real as anything else that they talk about. So the idea that it's just confined to like these conspiracy theory wings, the fringe elements of the people that look into this stuff, I don't think is the case. This seems very mainstream when it comes to what the World Economic Forum is talking about.
So it definitely seems that way. So I think it is interesting though. Okay. If you believed that climate change is a crisis and that the world was going to either everything's going to die off or most things would die off or something like that, then from that perspective, what is a valid justification for eating, say, cows or something that, like, they have their little chart that you pulled up there and it was like insects and, you know, it was water consumption and it was all these different things, right? You have insects, chickens, pigs, and cows, and it's the feed required, the land required per gram of protein, the water required per gram of protein. Like, you can see from an efficiency standpoint, like, cows are way less efficient. Eating cows is not nearly as efficient as eating bugs because you don't really need, they don't require any greenhouse gas emissions and barely any water and feed and whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting from that perspective, why wouldn't you do it? And then that's the thing. The thing that bothers me the most about people who take that hardline stance on climate is that they never want to actually live it out. They just don't ever want to live it out. And I would almost rather they all come out and say, yeah, you know what? We should all just eat bugs. Like, they should all have that position, right? Because what's the justification for eating cows in that universe? Right? So, I mean, I would prefer that. I would prefer it because at least it's consistent. What I can't stand is the inconsistency of it. That's the thing that drives me crazy.
Yeah, I know we don't get invited to the Davos meetings, but I can't imagine that they're dining on, cricket platters and stuff like that at Davos.
It's a great point.
Really,
that's a great point.
Really doubt it.
I mean, what is the exact? I mean, that's exactly right. Like, what are they eating at these Davos meetings? Is it crickets? Is it what? What is it? Is it ants? Are they eating a bunch of ants? They just got bowls of ants sitting everywhere. You just grab a handful of ants and shove it in your mouth. I have a feeling that's not what they're eating.
Right.
In fact, I know that's not what they're eating because we've heard the stories of the champagne and caviar flowing profusely throughout all of these elaborate dinner parties and exclusive events and on.
Maybe they're eating escargot. That's not. I mean, a snail isn't too far away from bugs.
I guess, yeah. But I have a feeling that whatever the carbon footprint of eating that snail is probably worse than a handful of crickets. I mean, what does it take? What does it take? I mean, seriously, why don't we just eat dirt? What's the carbon footprint of that? That's probably fine.
I mean, you said something just a minute ago about, like, looking at this like purely from like a sustainability perspective. If you were some type of just humanity-less, let's say, artificial intelligence central planning thing that's just like, we've got 9 billion people on this planet, 8 billion or something. How are we going to feed them all in the most efficient way? Crickets is the answer to that. Crickets is the answer to that. So for like the Klaus Schwabs of the world and these like want to be central planning types, it doesn't surprise me that they're pushing something like this. It really doesn't.
Right.
And you
And
know, and it's all done through all the sustainability, all of these things. 5 reasons why eating insects could reduce climate change. We need to save the planet. You have to eat bugs. It's very simple when you have no humanity.
Right. That's right. I mean, I don't know. I don't really understand why you wouldn't take that approach. Now, some people might say, well, just because, you're concerned about climate change doesn't mean that you have to take the most extreme approach on every single thing. Right. So I don't have to support eating bugs, because I think we can do a whole bunch of other things. And those things all together will be enough to save the planet. Except here's the problem. It's not. If you actually look at the math, it's not. It's not ever even close to enough. And and that's the problem. What they actually want to do, like on a macro level, would require such dramatic changes to society that it will never happen. And you and I know that. But people act like, well, if I just, ride my bike once a week to work instead of take my car, like that's going to do nothing.
No, and
it does nothing. Like most of the things that they do to save the planet do nothing, like in the grand scheme of things. And so what does it matter? Like, who cares? That's the point. So it's like, no, actually, you have to take the most extreme positions on a whole bunch of other stuff. You should be in your boats sailing across the Atlantic instead of flying, like Greta. Like, that's what you should be doing. That's what you should be doing. Yeah. That's why I like her so much, because she's legit. She probably does eat crickets. That's probably what she eats.
Yeah, we gotta check in on
find
that.
Out.
Find out what her snacking behaviors are. I think either on this channel or maybe on the In the Tank podcast on the Heartland channel, we've talked about kind of what's going on in Sri Lanka and the Netherlands, and how, this ESG standards, this way of sustainability, sustainable farming and agriculture has actually caused farms to shut down, caused in Sri Lanka food shortages, have caused the situation in terms of like food production in the world to go in a downward angle. And it's just like, if these people have their way and that trend is spread across the entire globe, we are going to be in a situation where we're running out of protein and we're running out of food and all of this. And thank goodness the overlords, the academia that's at the World Economic Forum, they have a solution for us. It's eating bugs. So it's just like, here's a solution to a problem that we're causing. And it's all undergirded though by climate change. So it's just that part of it does kind of creep me out a little bit. If we were reading these articles and there wasn't these national stories, these global stories of like potential food shortages, I would be able to laugh at this a little bit easier. But because that's kind of going on in tandem to us looking at these articles, it does creep me out a little bit. Creeps me out just as much as the idea of having to eat bugs.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, and this is just, it's so easy to look at these kinds of things and just say, well, who's ever going to possibly, buy into that? No way. But it's like, in just our lifetimes, we have seen so many. We're not old. We're in our 30s, early 30s. And in our lifetimes, we have seen so many things that say, when you and I were like 18, people would have said, no way that XYZ happens.
Sure.
And then sure enough, like that thing has become just the standard talking point of, like, usually it's the left, but I mean, it's true. Like there really is nothing that would shock me anymore. Not after COVID. Well, not after that. I mean, nothing would shock me now.
You raise a point that I wanted to address, because even like if you want to lump the World Economic Forum into like in these pieces that they write, just the kind of this think tank realm, you could discount a lot of it. It's like, the think tank types, they'll come up with different ideas that never actually get any traction. It sounds great on paper. There's some think piece about it or some white paper or something like that, but that's the end of it. And you could say that probably the same thing about this. So Is there any actual real life traction for any of this? Yes, there is. I've got a couple more articles here for you. One coming from the World Economic Forum. This is just May of last year. Worms for dinner. Europe backs insect based food in a bid to promote alternative protein. So it says here the European Union has ruled that the larval stage of the Tenebrio molitor beetle, the mealworm, is safe for people to eat, and it will shortly be on the market as a novel food. So the World Economic Forum is at least keeping track of some of these policy changes that are happening that are going to allow more insects for dinner to be a thing worldwide. And then a little bit closer to home, this was an article from a couple of years ago. This is July 2022, or sorry, 2020. From the Canada Broadcasting Channel or whatever, CBC. World's largest cricket processing plant coming to London, Ontario. So it says Aspire Food Group, a global industry leader in the production of edible insects, will soon build a 100,000 square foot plant that will bring us bugs as food to the North American market. The new facility is one of the most technologically advanced and energy efficient protein production systems in the world. And this is quoting from the co-founder of Aspire Food Group. Quote, "This first of a kind commercial facility will enable not just Aspire Food Group, but our entire growing sector to take an important stride forward in our mission to deliver an excellent value protein at a fraction of the environmental impact of most conventional protein sources, the cow and the chicken and the pig," right? So let's check in on that. How is this cricket processing plant coming? Well, this is an article from just this month, July 1st, 2022. Massive cricket processing facility comes online in London, Ontario. It says in the next few days, the first farmed insects will arrive at the new massive cricket processing facility in London, Ontario. At full capacity, Aspire Food Group's facility is expected to house 4 billion crickets and produce 13 million kilograms of the insect each year, and is what's believed to be the biggest cricket-specific processing facility in the world. And to show that the government also has their hands in this a little bit, it says this week the federal government, Canada's federal government, announced it was investing up to $8.5 million into Aspire's London facility. So, Justin, this isn't just think pieces from some academic organization like the World Economic Forum. No. We're actually seeing the rubber meet in the road here.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I sent as you were writing that, I just like typed in randomly into like a search engine, just eating insects America or something along those lines, and there was an article, a video series opinion thing put together by the New York Times this was published in February of this year, called The Joy of Cooking, and then in parentheses, insects. Climate conscious cooking means getting creative. And it's all about eating insects. And it even provides recipes for eating insects. Or it shows you cooking them or something. Then this one does provide recipes, actual specific recipes. This is from NPR. This is the green argument for eating cicadas, plus a few recipes from May 2021. And it's all about why we need to eat insects, because it's good for the environment. I mean, this is the thing. This is how it starts. Like, this is the way all these kinds of things, this is how they start. It starts with, we have to normalize this concept in the media, so that and educational institutions, we normalize it so it doesn't sound so weird. And then people kind of get used to it and they've heard of it, and then just give it a try, and then all of a sudden it's like, it's a crisis. And why would we let anyone not do it? Right. And before you know it, there's a tax on eating, non-insect,
carbon intensive protein sources. That's what it'll be called.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, the left is all for carbon pricing
Sure.
of just generally, like
Yep.
they are all for this idea that you should pay money. Companies, mostly in industries, should pay money if they want to use things that will produce carbon dioxide emissions. They should pay an extra tax because they say that it's causing all these other problems that are not caught up, in the price normally. So we got to add it in. Well, why wouldn't you have a similar tax then for the methane emissions that are associated with eating cows or
Sure.
pigs or whatever? Like, why wouldn't you do that? You would. So it's just like logically everything, all this is just a logical extension of all these uh, um, these solidified ideas that exist across the board on the left. Like these ideas already exist. All we've done is just gone, and not even all these people have done, has just taken this another step further. It's not like you and I are like, well, why don't they make us eat bugs? No, they already suggesting that we eat bugs. Like, we don't have to make it up. I mean, and I think personally, though, like just looking at all of this, because all of this has to do to some degree with politics, right? So like if something isn't politically feasible, the left doesn't usually adopt it, or they usually will at least adopt something that is more politically feasible first, and then maybe someday we get to eating bugs. So if I had to guess, I would say on the long road to like eating bugs, like mandating eating bugs or policies that promote eating bugs from the government, I would say that the whole like lab grown meat thing, or the like Beyond Beef and those kinds of things that are I think plant protein based products that taste similar to beef products, that I think is much more likely to be a thing first than to eat bugs, because it's kind of weird to have like the concept of lab grown meat or whatever, but it's still meat. And then the other one, it still at least tastes like meat. Like, I don't care what you do to crickets, they're not going to taste like a hamburger. So
No.
I think they're far more likely to go in that direction than they are to actually start making people eat cicadas. But I do think that it kind of helps though to have that out there, right? Because it's like when the New York Times is running articles about eating bugs, and then the government's like, well, maybe we don't need to eat bugs, everybody, but we should at least make sure that our meat is, fake. It's at least, it's fake meat at least. I mean, then everyone in the world, everyone in America who's now being coerced into eating the fake meat can turn around and say, well, at least we're not eating cicadas. So that's good. That's a plus. Like, I think that's legitimately part of the strategy here to some extent,
So lab grown meat is definitely a thing that the World Economic Forum also talks about. I just again Googled World Economic Forum lab grown meat, and a whole host of articles come up. Lab grown meat, how is it produced? World Economic Forum. How soon will we be eating lab grown meat? Food, when will we be eating lab grown meat? There's a whole bunch. This is another World Economic Forum video. Scientists in Israel are creating plant-based meat that has fats, something. So that is also a thing that they're talking about. Although I would suspect, and I haven't looked into this too much, but I think the process of doing this would be very expensive. I mean, I think that there are some like restaurants even that are like, yeah, this is a lab grown steak. But I would wager that is much more expensive than just getting the real version of it. But I have seen in some of these insect articles that the idea that they can put this into the supply chain or something, where the food that we eat, whether it's the chickens or the pigs or the cows, their diet is more consistent of this insect protein or something like that. So we're not eating the protein, but we're eating the things that are eating that protein.
Yeah.
So that I could see that becoming more of a
I could definitely see that being a thing, but that doesn't solve the climate issue, because the reason that they are so concerned about pigs, especially cows, is because of the methane emissions. And the only way you get rid of the methane emissions is to not have the cow. Sure. There's no other way around that. So, or to capture it somehow or some other stupid thing. But that's the only way. So, I mean, just kind of as a sort of a related, I mean, it's definitely a related question, I guess, but what do you, I mean, would you eat lab grown? I don't have to ask about the cicadas, but would you eat lab grown meat? I
So
guess is the first question.
so
Would you eat lab grown meat?
I've looked into the process, and it seems weird. They take like stem cells from living animals, and then they use those as like a starting point to grow like individual aspects of the meat, whether it's the muscle or the fat or the other part of it. I don't know. And then they take those elements, and then they have to mix them together to come up with something that has the same consistency and feel as like a fillet or something like that. So all of that seems a little weird. I'm not necessarily like against it in principle, but my fear is that because of how controlled it is and just like in a petri dish, like they can change it as much as they want. Like they can, like that one article that I just scrolled past that talked about it being like plant-based or something. Like is this steak going to have more soy in it than what a normal steak should be? I don't know. And it'll be up to these labs to determine, what should we put in this steak? So it's not going to be, if it was like a complete replica, like I couldn't even tell the difference between, even if I had an atomic microscope and I'm able to do all the tests on these things and I can't tell the difference between the two, I'd be open to that. But I think what we would have is opening the door to them being able to manipulate on a molecular level the type of food that we're getting, and that scares me. So I
Yeah.
apologize for the convoluted answer to your question, but that's kind of where my head goes.
So I feel like I would be more inclined to eat, which is kind of strange in a way, but I feel like I would be more inclined to enjoy eating like a something that is not even trying to be meat, like a beyond, burger over a lab grown thing, because at least it's like they're not even trying. It's not meat. It's not like manipulated meat. It's just something that has been made. It's just what, like vegetarian proteins and soy and stuff like that, that's been made to kind of taste like meat. I mean, that's really not that far off from just vegetarian cooking just in general, I guess. It's just more manufactured and whatever. And so that to me is not nearly as bad as the concept of stem cell growth meat. Like that to me, that sounds terrible. And
I hear you,
I don't
man.
even know why necessarily. It just like the concept of that
I
is
don't know.
not
I mean,
good.
I don't when like the
I'd rather
McDonald's and
just
the
not even have it at all, almost,
when the
than have
McDonald's and
that.
the Burger Kings were coming out with their like Beyond Burger or Extreme, what was it called? It was like
Impossible
Impossible Burger,
Whopper,
right?
right? Impossible Whopper, I think.
I mean, I didn't look. I wasn't interested in buying it, and I saw a bunch of articles. And take this with a grain of salt because I didn't look into it too in depth. But it seemed like if you were to replace all of your meat consumption with like this Impossible Burger plant material based burgers or something like that, like your intake of certain things, whether it's like soy or even like estrogen or something like that, was like way higher than what it would be if you just had like a meat diet. So because
Yeah.
of those things, like that has kind of scared me off of doing that. But again, that comes from a very ignorant point of view. I have not looked into
Yeah, I
this.
don't, I don't think that matters all that much. And the thing I've had a fair amount of this stuff. Okay. Because people who are in my personal life prefer not to, they're not, and I don't really know anyone who's like a true vegetarian, but I know people who try to be. And so we're always eating this kind of stuff at get togethers and that kind of thing. And I will admit that there's some of it that really does taste pretty close. I mean, if not spot on. And in a way, it's almost like, well, if I could make something for you that tasted basically the same, why not? Why not do it? I mean, what does it matter?
Sure.
And in a way, it's like, I mean, I get that. If you can get it that close, But the lab thing, that's different, because that to me is like, I don't even know. That's like altering nature and stuff. That's not taking, you know what I mean? That's just too weird for me. That's just too out there. But like the beyond, there's beyond sausage, okay, that you like looks like a sausage, like a hot dog type thing that you cook on a grill. That tastes pretty close. I'm telling you, that's very close. Very, very close. I'm not sure that you could tell if I gave you 2 of those, smothered it in mustard or something.
You've been hanging out with too many communists and doing communist cookouts.
I'm not. That I have no comment.
No comment. No comment.
I'm pleading the fifth on that one for sure.
Well, so let's just end it with this, because we're already 35 minutes into this, and I thought I was going to make a 15-minute segment. Next time that somebody talks about this idea, this almost like internet meme that they want us to eat bugs, you can't dismiss it. I've shown you enough articles where you can't dismiss it. I've shown you the real life stories about this becoming a thing that you can't just dismiss. So the next time that this story comes up, it might sound crazy. Whoever's in the room might think like, oh, that's crazy. No, I just showed you all of everything that you need to see when it comes to this. There is at least a modicum of truth to this, and I think that there's more than a modicum of truth to all of this.
Right.
So do they want us to eat bugs? I think the answer is yes. Usually when we have these like questions in there, you could like reasonably be like, not necessarily, but that's why we posed it as a question. This one, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think the goal is ultimately there's a large segment of people who are on the left who want to severely limit meat consumption. I would say that's the way, whether that's eating bugs or lab grown meat or beyond sausage and whatever. There's definitely a movement in that direction. Like, there's just no denying that whatsoever. That is already a thing. And it will become a much bigger thing. 5 years from now, this will be a bigger thing than it is today. 10 years from now, it'll be even bigger than that. I predict, and I've said this before, I'm going to keep saying it because I want somebody, I don't know who, just some random guy or woman who listens to the show to remember this. Someday, this will be part of the Democratic Party's platform, limiting meat consumption. It will. Someday it'll be an official policy of that. I don't exactly know what the policy will be, other than their goal is to limit meat consumption. That will be a thing. I guarantee it. And if you asked people 10 years ago or 15 years ago whether that would ever be something Democrats would put in their platform, they would think you were absolutely insane for believing that. But I am convinced of it. That's going to be the case.
You know what? And we've already seen a taste of that. I always refer to this all the time because it was such a disaster. But was it 2015 primaries?
No. This was
2019.
No, this was 2020.
Okay, yeah. Well, all right. 2020 primaries. Kamala Harris. The CNN did this big climate change a town hall thing. It was like 8 hours long. They had all like 16 candidates running for president, and Kamala Harris was up there, and she was talking about meat consumption. And somebody posed the question: should the nutritional standards set by the United States or whatever be adjusted to reduce the amount of red meat that Americans eat? And Kamala Harris, with her weird laugh, said yes, we should. We should change it because of climate change and all of that stuff. So we've already seen a taste of it. And hey, guess what? She's vice president right now. So we've already seen a taste of it, of these kind of more mainstream candidates when it comes to the Democratic Party. So yeah, in the next 10 years, that's your prediction. I think that's a pretty safe, pretty reasonable prediction.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. And it was, and if I remember right, I mean, I could be wrong. We don't have time to look it up because we weren't going to talk about it. But so it was 2019 for the 2020 primaries. I believe it happened in 2019. But I don't think it was just one question. I think several of them addressed this in some fashion, if I remember right. Or maybe it was just Kamala Harris, but I for some reason thought that it was something that several of them had to deal with.
I think Andrew Yang mentioned something about it too.
Yeah. At least, so there was at least, I think there was at least more than one person who was. It is going to be a thing. And the reason why is it's very simple. It's what we said before. It's very simple. If you believe that climate change is an existential crisis that's going to wipe us all out, then how can you make the argument that we shouldn't do this?
Right. What options would you take off the table?
Right.
If we're all going to die, what options do you take off the table?
Right.
Certainly not bug eating.
Right.
That stays squarely on the table.
Exactly. And that's the thing. If you say no to that question, you say, no, we're going to keep meat eating. Then what that does is in a primary, especially what that does is open the door for someone else to come up and say, boy, so-and-so clearly doesn't believe that climate change is a crisis. Because if they believe what I believe, if they believe the science, then they would know that we're all going to die. So good luck with your hamburgers when the world's on fire and everyone's dead and you're just sitting there eating your hamburgers you left in your freezer and the world has collapsed because of you. Like that would be how that would go. And they all know it. So no one's going to say that. If the only reason this has not become a major thing already is because no one will ask them the question in the media, because the media doesn't want them to have to answer the question because they know how bad that will look. That's the only reason.
Seriously.
If the New York Times went to every one of these people and said, what's your position on eating meat? They would all say they're against. I guarantee it.
Justin, we need to host the next climate change town hall with all the different candidates that are going to be running for whatever office. And we should ask them questions like this. Like, considering that we're all going to die from climate change, do you think we should change to an all insect diet or something like that? Like just a whole bunch of questions just like that. Should we just like ban air travel? I mean, we're all going to die if we don't. So are you in favor of that? Just a whole series of questions, see what how far their beliefs actually go. All right. Let's wrap it up here. I think that that'll do it for this little special segment of Justin and Donald Save America.
This was a full episode.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Segment. Yeah, full episode of Justin and Donald Save America. Like I said at the beginning of this, there are just a couple of things, a handful of things that you could do that cost you absolutely nothing that can help get these messages that we have here out to more people. All you have to do is hit that like button, share this content, hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Leave a comment underneath the video. Let us know what you think about this. How crazy is this? Have you ever eaten bugs? I don't know. All of those things help break down that algorithm that prevents content like this from reaching more eyeballs. Justin, where should the good people go to stay up to date on your work and the work of, the Socialism Research Center?
At Justin T. Haskins on Facebook, Twitter, Parler, Getter, all the rest. And then also stoppingsocialism.com, of course.
Fantastic. And also you could find Stopping Socialism content all over the place on social media, Stopping Socialism TV and here on YouTube. But there's also Stopping Socialism on Facebook and Twitter and basically anywhere if you look hard enough. All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will talk to you next time.